Hi, hello, and welcome back to the HII Method. My name is Jen Hatz. I am the host of the HII Method podcast, and I'm also the founder of the HII Method, a holistic, integrative, and innovative approach to assessing and optimizing human health, well-being, and performance. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Jared Eaton, representing Neuroforce One. Neuroforce One is a human performance company that has been training champions for years, and they offer assessments and training in their facility as well as remote options available. And Jared, you were just telling me a little story, asking a little bit about some advice based on a story from some questions that you're getting from your athletes. So why don't you share with us kind of what you've been experiencing right now, what your athletes are asking you about?
Exactly, Jen. I'm so happy to be here again on your podcast. This is so great. But yeah, so I don't know if you guys know, but I have a track club and we're about to enter into our winter track season. And so I get a bunch of questions about nutrition. What should I eat? Is it okay to eat this? So one of my athletes came up to me, and I love it because they're dedicated, but they were like, hey, is it okay if I eat like ice cream once in a while? Like I was told that like you can't have any sweets or anything if you're trying to be like really serious. And so I was like, you know what, this is a great question for Jen. And I like your feedback on it because these kids are so impressionable. And I think there's so much information for you to get the right answer. And there's also so much information for you to get the wrong answer, and to kind of have these kind of negative ideas or things in place that say like, if you eat ice cream once a month, that you've kind of just ruined your whole diet, or you're not serious about your sport. So is it okay if my athlete eats ice cream every once in a while, Jen?
I love the question. And I will give you just like a first short answer. Yes, it is okay.
Okay,
but
good.
I want to give you now like a more extensive, detailed answer in response to that, because that exact situation is actually something that I have experienced in really just all athletes, all teams, all populations. And it is because there's this constant, you could say like a contrast or a controversial combination of opinions really when it comes to what to eat and how to take care of your body. And the thing is, they're all opinions. Like there's research in some areas, and then there's also very strong opinions that take certain points from research and then turn that into a full form belief, right? And then on top of that, we all have our own experiences with eating, and just culturally and socially different foods that we eat and that we're familiar with. And so viewing foods in that way of like something that is either okay or not okay, or right or wrong, or good or bad, that's really the big picture focus, is to turn our attention away from that black and white thinking when it comes to food. But so I just want to share a little story then. So some of the experience I've had as a dietitian working with a team is actually reversing that mindset, that just what your athlete just, came to you asking if it's okay to have like some ice cream. Yes, it's absolutely okay. It's part of food, and it has a place within your overall intake, right? And so some of the approaches that I had to take when working with athletes was really that exact concept of trying to lower the stress or lower the pressure on staying on a diet, if that makes sense. Like lowering that tension around food and what is allowed, quote unquote, or good or healthy or beneficial versus not. And so a lot of things that I would start to incorporate into just a day-to-day basis with athletes was quite literally the foods that they maybe were told to be afraid of, if that makes sense. So I would actually offer like candy on the sidelines, like Skittles. And Marshawn Lynch ate Skittles like from Pop Warner all the way through his pro days. He ate Skittles on the sidelines. So like it's a thing, like it's out there. But so I would start to replace some foods with others that maybe were otherwise demonized. So like I said, like candy or like Rice Krispie treats. Like, yeah, you can have a couple of Rice Krispie treats on the sidelines. Like anything to use that little sugar rush to your advantage when you are in a competition or it's a high intensity training. There's some sort of a high activity effort. Like, yeah, use that sugar to your advantage. That's a totally acceptable, totally normal, potentially beneficial time to utilize that. And then on the flip side, then trying to increase the education and awareness around what other nutrient dense and really highly nutritional foods, the higher nutritional value that food can provide, that's going to be that much more beneficial to you overall, especially your recovery process. And so if you incorporate those as the majority of your diet throughout your days, then you're probably in a really good place, just in general. And then allowing for those little here and there, some sweets, some desserts, some sugar, it's okay as long as it's making up just that little added piece out of the big picture puzzle. So the big picture puzzle should be the nutrient dense stuff. That little added piece can be the fun stuff that helps you to just feel happy or to feel like you are engaging with, family at a holiday or something, like the little added social piece, if anything, or just wanting to feel like a kid again and have some candy on Halloween, or, have some pie for dessert for Thanksgiving. So, all of those little fun added things. I don't even want to call it fun, because that in itself adds this thought that like it's fun or it's boring. And that should probably be, categorized in like what we don't want to do, right? But yeah, so just having that little added piece added to the big picture puzzle of your overall intake.
I love that. So I know immediately my brain goes to like cheat meals, right? And were you saying have that balance? I don't know why I just thought The Rock in his like 15 pancakes and guzzled with syrup and like his little tequila and stuff like that. So, and it is so crazy to watch celebrities or other fitness people have cheat meals and say that it's okay. And then on the flip side, watch somebody else who is a nutritionist or somebody else on Instagram that are giving their opinions of saying, you can't do treat meals, you can't do X, Y, Z, you have to stick to your regimen and be really strict to it. But that's fun. And then you saying using like a burst of sugar to kind of help it to your advantage brought my mind back to track as well. And I remember some coaches used to give their kids like a spoonful of honey, like right before the warm up or like in between the races to kind of give them that little sugar rush. And in my mind, I never truly understood it, right? Like it didn't make sense to me conceptually, but hearing what you've said and now my knowledge, like today, I understand like you're going to be able to use that energy a lot faster than like, any other carb that you've eaten earlier in the day, right? It's just like that simple, quick burn off fuel that you're going to need. And so I think that's a really important tool because I didn't know the purpose of it, but now I can understand and see how that can benefit. And so is that like a secret weapon now, like a spoonful of honey or something in between a harder workout? Is that something I got to adapt to my program?
I love the specific example of honey. So I'm going to tell you a little story about that actually in a second, because I first of all, when you mentioned The Rock and his cheat meals, the fact that man's cheat meals tend to be breakfast foods with a glass of tequila. And it's the most like, I don't know. To me, that's like a disruptive meal combination. I'm like, I don't want liquor with breakfast foods, but yeah. So he's, and these are like, anyone who sees this on social media, it's like these gigantic high calorie meals. And then there's, like you mentioned, the overall claims of having a cheat meal versus not having a cheat meal. So this is actually something that I would say, if there is a takeaway to have when it comes to cheat meals, is this: more than likely, the concept of having a cheat meal is giving yourself a break from how you are normally eating. You're cheating on your normal way of eating by having this other way of eating. It's you're not being loyal to the way that you're eating and the way that you're treating yourself. So think of it like that. First of all, cheating is not really, what we want to be promoting for people. Like no, stay loyal to how you're taking care of your body overall. So don't view it as if what you're doing for your body overall is so restrictive that you need this outlet to relax and to ease yourself from. So if you feel like you do need to have something that is a cheat meal, or like you're like craving something that is super calorie dense, like you're craving pizza, or you're craving dessert, you're craving something that is very high calorie, chances are what you're doing in your normal day-to-day is too restrictive. Your body's being deprived of something that it needs, and you're not actually taking care of yourself and nurturing and nourishing what you need. And that's why you're feeling driven towards a higher calorie intake in general. So chances are, and this in itself is a big topic, but like the big picture takeaway, if you feel like you are needing to have something that is very off of what you would normally be taking in, chances are you need to address what you're normally taking in. Because if your normal day-to-day diet is fully satiating, if it's fully nourishing and nurturing what you do need from a nutritional standpoint, your cravings or that drive to have these added calories is going to go down. So that's probably the biggest takeaway that people should have, is that the question of a cheat meal really shouldn't be a question. It should be, what does your normal day-to-day actually look like? And how do we get you to a point where you can stay loyal to that on a day-to-day basis and not feel the need to divert off of your plan? Now, those cheat meals though. So going back to what the Rock does, especially with a high calorie meal and then topping it off with alcohol. This is like, I love him. I love what he does, but that's probably I don't want to say the worst, one of the worst things that you could be doing to your body is to give yourself this giant calorie surplus and also calories in the form of alcohol. These are items that your body does not utilize to its benefit. It's actually going to add risks to your health overall. It's going to impair your recovery overall, the alcohol specifically. But then that high calorie load, especially if it's a combination of sugars and fats, and it's just very calorie dense, it might taste very, very good. It might be very high tasting, but not necessarily providing your body nutritionally with what it needs. It's just giving you this real high calorie flush. That is not necessarily going to be used to your advantage. But there is a point in time when taking in calories can be used to your advantage. And that's what we already alluded to just a little bit ago with having that little bit of sugar when you are active. So when you are training, like during training or in a competition or on the sidelines or on the side of the court, like whatever the highest activity that you're engaging in, and in this case, it's not a big cheat meal that's going to keep you sleeping on the couch for a couple hours because you just took in a high calorie load. It's just a little dose of sugar. But that little dose of sugar during that period of time, because you digest it so quickly, you're able to actually use it in that period of time for that activity. So it's like that little sugar rush, you can use it to your advantage. So this would be, I would think, the way that we steer our attention away from cheat meals in general and towards allowing us to have sugar, not necessarily allowing us, but allowing the thought of sugar to be absolutely okay and acceptable, is that yes, it is okay and acceptable if you're able to use it in a way where it's actually helping to benefit you and your performance and your overall activity. And then you said the little thing about the honey. So quick little story for you. So there was a point in time, and this is with a very big football program down south. They would use, it was like this like invented food, basically. Take white bread and you drizzle honey on it. It's just called honey bread. And that's it. Like literally as if you're making like a honey sandwich with white bread, like Wonder Bread, white bread with honey. It sounds disgusting and it just tastes like honey. Just tastes like you're eating honey on a sponge, basically. But it's that combination of the white bread is giving you basically pure glucose, which is a simple sugar. And then honey is giving you a very high dose of fructose, which is like a fruit-based sugar. So now you have this combination of glucose and fructose that you're taking in all at once. Now, here's a fun little fact for you. So glucose and fructose, these are two simple sugars on their own. And the two of them combined also is considered sucrose, which is table sugar. So you could either have honey bread on the sidelines or you could have some Skittles and you're basically getting the same thing. It's basically the same thing that's driving that quick little energy, a quick little added energy for you to utilize when you are in that very high active state.
I love that so much. So that is something to utilize. And so did that football team, were they successful or do they continue to use this kind of technique? And also you said Skittles, and I know they're getting banned in California, so maybe not Skittles, probably
Oh my God, I
like.
didn't even think about that. That's a oh my God. Good segue there. Yeah, so that's another thing. Yeah, so just a thing on like foods that are being banned or different sugars or sugar substitutes. There's a whole lot of research out there that can say a variety of different things, and there's a whole lot of opinions out there that can take a little fragment of a research study and blow it into an overall belief or an attitude. So that could be in itself another topic entirely about what to do with all the claims about different types of sweeteners, whether it's a artificial sweetener or sugar, or if it's different additives and preservatives and food coloring and the entire world of just food manufacturing and food science it's a phenomenal and interesting field because the really the concept of food science is helping us to create food so that we can lower hunger and that we can actually feed people and feed people substantially. But then you have the added layer of the fact that we're a consumer-driven market, and this is a for-profit industry as well. So food, even though you require food to stay alive and to be alive, it's also a for-profit industry. So there is money to be made on a variety of different products. And so there's this, it's a really big, interesting topic with a lot of, like ethics thrown in and a lot of science thrown in. So I love that topic in general. So I'm glad you brought that up about the Skittles. That's funny.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to revisit that for sure. Cause my mind is going crazy now, but yes. So again, so the football program, they're still using it. They found success with it.
Great question. So I don't know if they are still using the honey bread, but the program itself is still doing very well. They are a top ranked program right now.
Okay.
So yeah, not sure if they're still using the exact honey bread, but I did take that concept from that team and I developed it into a slightly different concept with another team. And so instead of using white bread like Wonder Bread, I actually used Hawaiian rolls because those are a little sweeter. And I used, instead of honey, it was a like vanilla flavored sugar gel, basically, kind of like a frosting, but it was like more watery. So the combination of like these Hawaiian rolls with this like vanilla, basically frosting, and a little bit of cinnamon and sugar on it, it basically tasted like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And it was the same concept as the honey bread, but just I made it a little more of a gourmet flavoring, if we will. So that way it tasted like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, like I said, because kids love that. But yeah, and so that was like the hit with the team, man. They loved that. And I could not make those, it was like little rolls. I could not make them fast enough to keep up with every single practice and game. They would have it like pregame and halftime. They had to have these little rolls, and they called them honey buns, even though there was no honey on them. But yeah, so it is a phenomenal way to use that concept of quick digesting sugars in a way that feels a little more, in this case, like a homemade, rendition of it. So that way you're still introducing food as this multi-purpose function, and that, hey, you can use different foods to your advantage in different ways. But just taking that concept, yeah. So instead of actually giving candy, you can just give some honey bread.
I love that. Chef Jen over here cooking up all the stuff. And the last question on that topic, because I'm really curious, it just got me going, is this honey bread just going to help them last throughout the whole game, the whole practice? Should this be abused every day? Should you train your body and take it only when you need it? Or is it something that should be, utilized every day?
That's a great question. Actually, I love that question. So I'm probably going to launch into a real detailed explanation, but it's because I love the fact that you just asked this question. So any of those really quick digesting sugars or just carbohydrates in general that digest very quickly and easily, that's in the world of athletics and sports, that can be used for athletics and sports. So think of it like that, like anything that is that quicker or more advanced, or in this case, it's that very speedy digestion and absorption of these sugars to be able to use them. So you want to view that as such, as if it is a specific, almost like a sports specific supplement, because it really is. And it's going to add that added energy, that added carbohydrate energy that you could use if you are in a high intensity sport or it's a long duration sport. If you have a whatever your physical activity is that is taking or requiring a lot of energy from you, then you have that advantage of, in this case, this sport specific supplement of sugar or of a quick digesting carbohydrate. But everything that I just said is that it's specific to the sport and the intensity, the duration of the sport, which means that it's really not serving you a benefit much at all outside of those conditions. So if the sport that you're engaging in, or if the workout for the day is a very low intensity, if it's short duration, or if it's just your normal day-to-day life, it's a rest day, then you don't need that added sport-specific supplement. Instead, you would benefit from the more well-rounded, diverse, and highly nutrient-dense foods that should be making up the majority of your day-to-day. That added supplement should be treated as if it is only meant for those high-activity situations that you require them. And the reason why we treat it as such is not because the sugar is bad. It's not because of that. It's because of the fact that too much can actually have an adverse effect on your overall health. So this is where, and this is actually probably the slippery slope where even just saying that, someone might take that away saying, oh, well, then I don't want to have any to begin with, And so this is where the opinions start to come in and your own personal experience starts to really paint the picture and really develop it further of where and how and in what ways could this be used to my advantage, or could I really benefit from just not having it at all? And so when I say that having too much of it can have an adverse effect, the biggest thing is that your digestive system is built in a way and designed in a way in order to digest and absorb foods in their whole food form. So the more that we take food and refine it, or we add a variety of different ingredients to manipulate in some way, the more that we take it from its original form and change it from that original form, whatever that may be. That could even be taking an orange and then juicing it, so now it's just the juice. So all of the secondary byproduct from that is going to digest and absorb differently than the original form. And that's just because your body and your digestive system is built and designed in a way to really mechanically and physically digest food. So when it's not in that original form, you just digest it differently. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because, like I just said, having that quick digesting carbohydrate when you are active means that it's going to digest quick and you're going to absorb it quick. So you're going to have that energy very quickly to use. But just that description right there, that's not how you would normally digest carbohydrates. So if there's a lot of these refined carbohydrates or just quick digesting carbohydrates and they're making up a large majority of your days, or just you're having it very frequently day to day, or you're having a lot of it at once versus a little of it, and this will be based on like a personal, whatever your personal individual intake is of how much a lot is versus a little bit. But so all of these situations, the more that is there, the more you are rapidly absorbing this sugar directly into your system. So it's going to increase your blood glucose. This can, over time, start to have an adverse effect on you and how sensitive you are to those carbohydrates, and also on your overall energy levels throughout the day, your ability to sleep at night, and your ability to recover from your overall workouts. So if there's one big takeaway from everything that I just explained, it's really to view those refined carbohydrates as a very sport-specific supplement and to try to clear them out of your view from your day-to-day intake and focus instead your day-to-day intake on those foods that your body and your digestive system are built to digest specifically in that way.
I love that so much. Thank you for the detailed answer, because it makes so much more sense to me now. to understand the why and what's truly kind of happening as your body's breaking down these things, to then be able to use this as like a tool for my benefit, for definitely for my athletes. So thank you. And it's so funny you're talking about like fast digestive foods. I'm starting to think Thanksgiving is definitely around the corner and the holidays. And so we start getting into the slower digestive things. Maybe they're not slow digestive, but they're definitely heavy foods that just kind of weigh on you. And again, for my athletes going into these holiday seasons, because it's just good food after home cooked food after meal, and it's just nonstop with Thanksgiving and Christmas. What are some ways that they could kind of like navigate through some of these holidays? And I know we talked about it's okay to have a cheat meal, but it's not necessarily a cheat meal, but to have these things kind of built into your normal lifestyle of eating. But yeah, can you give any suggestions or thoughts on dealing with the holidays as a disciplined athlete who wants to get better?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll start with a little asterisk there. So even if you don't identify yourself as a disciplined athlete, even if you identify yourself as an undisciplined individual, whatever you view yourself on, or in whatever way you view yourself with food and with eating and with wanting to stay really just in control of your body and how your body is handling the overall day-to-day life and stressors that you have in your life. So the holidays, very often people view the holidays as a chance to just completely let go of anything that was any of those, restrictive behaviors, any of the stress that they were feeling around eating. It's like you throw it all out the window and just enjoy for the holidays. And what I would say is that that's probably an indication that there's maybe a little too much restriction and stress on the front end. If you feel like you need to absolutely, let loose entirely and just gorge yourself throughout the holidays and then try to pick it back up for New Year's, right? So instead, I would say that having a sense of balance, and a true balance would mean that you're approaching the holidays as that time to experience that time with your family. It's a time to experience the holiday itself is an experience. And so embrace it as the experience itself and not necessarily a chance to eat whatever you want to eat. So instead, viewing food during the holidays instead as an opportunity to have maybe some samples on your plate of foods that you may not otherwise be eating throughout the year. Totally, absolutely beneficial way to view the holiday as like, hey, this is my opportunity to have pumpkin pie because I otherwise don't eat pumpkin pie really at all throughout the year. So I'm going to have a little bit of pumpkin pie. But view it in that field of vision that this is your opportunity to sample foods. And then when you are building a plate, like at Thanksgiving or really just any holiday, I mean, this could even be like a regular Sunday at any time of year. And if mom and dad cook a whole big spread for you on a Sunday and that's like your time to gorge out, maybe it's time to start viewing it as, okay, this is my opportunity to just try a few foods on my plate that I wouldn't otherwise make for myself maybe, and still keep basically a backbone of your normal nutritional intake as the backbone for the day. So for instance, if like Thanksgiving, if everyone's cooking Thanksgiving throughout most of the day and you know that you're going to have your big Thanksgiving meal at some point in the afternoon, still have breakfast that day and like a reasonable breakfast that you would normally have, and maybe still have lunch depending on how late into the day the big holiday meal is going to be, and still treat the day as if it is a normal day with that basic backbone of your typical nutritional intake. And then when you do have the holiday meal itself, you have now this opportunity to try these new holiday specific foods, right? And then what you're not doing though is completely disregarding the entire day as one big holiday itself. Instead, it's the holiday meal, not the holiday full day of eating, if that makes sense. So that way you're still providing your body with what you need, because again, you've built in that backbone throughout the day, and you're also having that added advantage of experiencing the holiday. And again, the big word there is experience. You're supposed to be experiencing the holiday, not looking forward to just eating some kind of foods, right? The food is going to be there, and you're going to enjoy it, whether or not you're looking forward specifically to the food or looking forward to the overall experience. So just allow yourself to enjoy the experience. and try those foods as your opportunity to try foods for the holiday. And then otherwise you get right back to it the next day and you're already back into your normal routine, and you didn't throw yourself completely off into this separate category of I'm off and I'm on, and now I have to go back onto my diet because I went off my diet, or feeling like you had to let everything go for the holidays, and now there's this layer of maybe guilt or resentment, or there's a whole lot of psychology that can start to take a toll on us when we are viewing certain times, certain experiences, certain holidays as our chance to let go from what our normal day-to-day is. And so the real big thing is really striking that balance and utilizing the opportunity of the holiday to just enjoy that balance, really.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. I know when I was an athlete, I was looking forward to the big holidays to kind of relax and let loose. Even outside of the holidays, there were moments in my training where it was be restrictive, and then be wide open and let it go, instead of like having a maintained lifestyle, I guess, that was more flexible and kind of worked with my life, my actual life. Because and I know I've told you this before, like professional track athletes will like go overseas, and we've been so strict for our diet throughout the whole season that when we're overseas, we don't eat the normal food. So we eat what we know, which is like McDonald's and stuff. So yeah, I think allowing and putting all that kind of into the bigger perspective allows us to make a lifestyle change instead of seeing these things as just open, free range to just go buck crazy. So no, I love that. I love that a lot. So this is good. And I think this is information that for sure I would love and my kids would love, and to make sure that, we're all on the same path, kind of have a nutritional objective. And speaking of like teams and my coaches staff, like how beneficial do you think it would be to have like a nutritionist within that immediate circle with a team? Because I know I asked you a bunch of questions, so I feel like you're on my team and I have like a professional to speak with. But for some other teams or clubs or universities that are thinking about like, the importance of their nutritionist, like what are some of the pros and maybe cons that come with having a nutritionist on staff?
Yeah, phenomenal question. So it's an interesting thing too, because so having a registered dietitian as part of a team or as a consultant that coaches and practitioners can turn to has become a much more accepted state of I guess operations for different teams or organizations or schools. And it's taken a little bit. It's taken a little bit for just those who have a background understanding of nutrition specific knowledge. And really, it's not just understanding nutrition as it sits on a plate, but it's understanding your actual anatomy and physiology and what your body really, your biology and your chemistry. So the combination of both of that is your biochemistry, and what you're eating that is on your plate is quite literally becoming and incorporating into your cells and tissues. So your body functions and builds and recovers because of what is on your plate. And so someone who has that a higher degree of education and the standardized curriculum, they have that experience specific with nutrition, and really the highest credential that you would want to look for is a registered dietitian, because they've gone through the highest level of education and experience and internships and the exams that they have to pass, and so it's kind of like the gold standard for a nutrition professional that you would want to look for is a registered dietitian, and specifically someone who really specializes in athletics or in physiology, and just understanding how it is that the body is in fact incorporating these nutrients for your movement patterns and for your body's recovery. And here's another added thing too. If there's also a background in any kind of counseling or behavioral therapy or psychology, that is that much more of an added benefit to the overall team itself. And so there are a lot of practitioners who have studied nutrition who do also have that added layer of awareness when it comes to behavior change and psychology and just the overall communication and counseling experience with someone. Because everything that I just said about, the holidays and eating and different ways to view how you're viewing food and how you're viewing your overall balance, that is such a big topic. That is such a big part of really everyone's lives. And this is something that is an ongoing day-to-day, dynamically changing area of our lives of where we view ourself and ourself in relationship to our goals that we're working towards, and where we view ourself in relation to having a sense of balance in our life. And if we feel like we are driven towards one direction or another, whether it's being more restrictive or needing to let go of a lot of things, or if it's just this, constant changing, maybe year after year, maybe last year you were really strict during the holidays, maybe this year you're going to let it all go. And all of these things, I can even say from personal experience that's been, eating and living is just an ongoing experience. Like, you're going to eat every single day for your entire life. It is an ongoing experience. It's never going to be the exact same. And so working with someone who understands that, first of all, that no matter where you have been or what you're doing now, that it's going to be different. It's always going to be changing. It's always going to be adapting and evolving over time. And as long as you have that background experience and education understanding, and you have the ability to then have that communication, that consultation, that really in-depth relationship building, so that way the advice you are receiving or the recommendations that you are receiving are actually best for you, where you're at right now. And it's not just coming from that person's own experience or their opinions or whatever research says, but that it's actually meeting you where you're at right now. So these are all different benefits that can come from having someone who has that background and that standardized curriculum and credentialing as part of your team, or at least as someone that you can consult with your team. Now,
I love that.
Yeah. And now I'll just add a little disclaimer, because you asked for some pros and some cons. So some cons, though, of having someone that is providing nutrition education, is providing recommendations, is if they are doing exactly what I mentioned of looking at research or looking at something that is a hard evidence from research or a hard opinion based on research. And they are now casting that out as advice for everyone as an ongoing day-to-day thing. That is where that added, we'll say the added authority of their title, of their position, of their background education can carry with it a little bit of a disadvantage for everyone who's receiving that advice now, because now you have no choice. You have no reason not to trust what they're saying, but what they're saying may be very specific to what they know and what they believe and how they practice or how they live. So there is, and this really is how it goes with any profession, any industry. It's having that use of discernment and being willing and able, having the ability really to adapt the overall communication, adapt the workload, adapt the recommendations to meet you where you're at. And having the added education and credentialing behind you to help back up why you're saying what you're saying, that helps tremendously. But then, so that's probably the one big con I would say, is that you just want to watch out for having regimented advice being given to everyone, or being given on a day-to-day basis as like, this is how it goes because this one research study said this, so therefore we're going to do this every single day forever. Like there's a lot of changes and shifts that need to be incorporated into overall recommendations. So that would be the one big piece. But otherwise, the advantages of having that expertise and that knowledge and insight and the awareness, it will always set you up for an added benefit in your overall ability to take care of yourself and your overall ability to see results from all the effort that you are putting in.
That's so awesome. Jen, I just want to say I'm so thankful to have you, to be able to have access to you and your wealth of knowledge. Because kind of bringing this full circle, like before we run out of time, there's so much information out there. There's so many professionals, right, that give their hard stance and opinions on things, and the based on research. So it's kind of hard for any layperson to kind of argue against, right? And it's so difficult because you're stuck in a rock and a hard place. But yeah, I think understanding that the benefits of having a registered, dietitian on your team, on your staff, and somebody who is not so closed-minded, I guess is what you're ultimately saying, is willing to adapt with all the new changes, because literally there's so many new things that come out with banned foods or nutritional recommendations, or the latest new diet that has come out. So the nutrition world is an ever evolving thing, and I think it's great to have somebody that is willing to evolve with the field as well. So yeah, I just personally want to say thank you. And so any other coach, anybody else who wants to have somebody on their team, I highly recommend, Jen, if you have the time and availability. But yeah, anybody else who was able to fill that gap for you, that need for you. So yeah, I see the value in it, from our conversations through our podcast. So it was just great.
I appreciate you saying that. I'm grateful to be a part of this team and to be here, for you to bounce off any ideas, any answers, any feedback, anything that is ever needed. Like I don't think you realize how jazzed I get when I receive just questions in general, because to me it's like I very often feel like I'm the only person that cares about just so many different like angles to all of these things, And so when I receive that kind of I guess what's the questions, the curiosity, really. It's like when I'm receiving curiosity from people of like, I want to know more about XYZ. I want to know if when, whatever it is, it's like that curiosity is huge, because it means that, first of all, that I'm not alone in feeling like some of these things are really important that we understand and know. But it's like, to me, it's that much more. I think it's cool. It's really cool to know that like there is that like-minded kind of perspective, I think, that is starting to really get cast out there, where people are seeing and identifying that there are areas that are maybe something that was missing in their overall education. Like maybe something that like you just never learned at any point in time. Like, why didn't I learn this before? And so it's like that just curiosity, I think, just, I get so jazzed with that. But yeah, so I'm truly, truly grateful to be not only part of this team and for myself to be here for you and your team, but then, yeah, absolutely grateful for anyone and everyone who does need help, who has those questions, who has that curiosity and they want to pique that curiosity and ask questions. Feel free to click the link in the show notes and send me all your inquiries, send me all your questions and requests, and we can get the ball rolling on trying to expand that curiosity into actual answers for you to be able to utilize to your advantage.
Awesome. Well, Jen, that is all the questions that I had. You've knocked it out the park, like always. Again, so thankful for these conversations, for sure. Thank you so much for having me, too.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for joining. And otherwise, we will talk to you all again soon. Bye, everyone.
See ya.